This is part 3 episode 159. It's him. Feng Linga lost her voice, suddenly throwing herself into Yi Weiyang's embrace while crying out loud right after this call. On the surface, Yi Weiyang's character was rather more optimistic than Feng Linga and seemed far more tolerant. But actually, Feng Linga was also a really strong person, otherwise she wouldn't be the one to have inherited the Alliance's great auction house. But even if she was stronger, she was after all just a girl. This guy had been missing for close to 5 years after their last separation. No letter came, and not a single piece of news had spread. Even the Scarlet Dragon armor she had offered him was already smashed to pieces. Feng Linga had seemed to be hypnotizing herself to convince herself into believing he was still alive. But deep inside, how could she not understand that the chances for him to still be alive were very scarce? Now that she was finally able to see him again, still living and well, even if Feng Linga felt even more enraged, she couldn't help but cry out tears of joy. He's alive. He's alive. And he's back. Her tears gushing out, this strong leader of the Alliance's auction house had already totally lost control over her own emotions. Indeed, when that cloak was removed, it revealed the true colors of the only disciplined priest of the priest temple, the bald Swordsman. Compared to 4 years ago, he was even more robust, but did not forget his own identity as a priest. His priest's gown was fully packed with his strong muscles, and just by standing here, he gave off a lofty feeling of might. His eyes flickered in golden light, and as Swordsman strode forward, he seemingly sensed something and unconsciously glanced at the warrior temple's honored guest lounge. But this lounge was really elevated high. There's no way he could see anything inside unless his eye's line of sight could shift direction midway. The light of selection glinted onto another person coming from the spiritual temple, who entered ahead of him due to Swordsman having to remove his gown. The temple's great gathering was an honor amongst honors for all contestants, and being able to participate was already a great glory. To be able to gain points for one's own temple was such an honor that no one would dare go easy there. In the midst of incantations, a dark purple hexagram appeared in front of that summoner, and immediately, a pitch-black gate slowly rose up from the ground. A sinister aura rose up, and in the air, a black fog rippled around faintly. Darkness attribute. This summoner was actually a rarely seen dark summoner, using the magic called Hell's Gate, completely different yet similar to the creature summoning gate. This darkness summoner was visibly very powerful, to be able to use Hell's Gate in such a short time. As Swordsman was just standing there, his gate of darkness had already come out. Contracted magic. Yi Weiyang cried out in alarm, drawing the emotionally disturbed Feng Linga's attention onto the field. Contracted magic was generally something only summoners from the spiritual temple could train. The contracted beast they put their heart into breeding was generally their greatest asset, but not all summoners could find a fitting magical beast to subdue, to make them their own contracted beast. So in such a situation came another choice, contracted magic. The so-called contracted magic was a magic branded into the depths of the user's heart to become part of his body. A summoner using contract magic would not be able to possess a contracted beast of his own, but this magic would cause their strength to magically break through the limitations of his rank to reach a higher level. Right now, this dark summoner's display proved with no doubt that his contracted magic was Hell's Gate. Hell's Gate in itself was, just like creature summoning gate, a magic of the 7th step, but after being turned into his contracted magic, it would rise in power alongside his cultivation to get reinforced greatly. This darkness summoner looked in his 50s, making him a relatively young contestant. His cultivation reached the peak of the 8th step. By relying on this contracted magic similarly raised to the peak of the 8th step, he felt confident in being able to put up a fight even against a powerhouse at the 9th step. Feng Linga's teary face shifted its gaze to the field, unconsciously feeling greatly worried. The contracted magic Hell's Gate could be considered a powerful thing. Not only did it have a great burst power, but moreover, it could be maintained just by using up the magic power of the user continuously. Generally, prolonged magic such as creature summoning gate or Hell's Gate would not be employed in an individual tournament because of the really long casting time. But this being a contracted magic, this dark summoner was able to complete it in a very short time. Furthermore, it was an advanced Hell's Gate, making it a completely different thing. Simazyan was unarmed and defenseless in front of the Hell's Gate. Fenglinger understood very clearly this Baldy's capabilities. Without the energetic ball of light in his hand, how much of his strength could possibly come out? The feelings of worry and excitement filling Fenglinger masked the deep grudge she still had. Fenglinger tightly grabbed Yi Weiyang's hand, nervously looking at the situation on the field below. Simazyan advanced with no reservations, not releasing any kind of ability, but just taking large strides toward the dark mage. To an ordinary person, this speed could be considered large strides, but to the powerhouses participating in this gathering, it just felt too slow. The opposite darkness summoner felt truly puzzled when looking at Simazyan, even thinking, wasn't he being too careful by using his contracted magic right off the bat? He was facing this person looking to be in his 30s, with a robust build comparable to a mighty dragon, but clad in a priest gown. Really, a strange sight. Furthermore, this fellow was not even using any ability, only taking large steps toward him like an ordinary human. There were quite a few matches in the individual competition, but this was the first time such a thing was happening. This darkness summoner had a high status in the spiritual temple, and a plentiful fighting experience. After this short time of stupor, he immediately made up his resolve to use his own full strength, no matter the opponent, for the sake of winning this for the spiritual temple. Hell's Gate's power came to view. Hellhounds surrounded in dark flames came out frantically from the gate, aimed at Simazyan's direction. These hellhounds were 12, dual-element creatures of darkness and fire attributes, and equivalent to human powerhouses of the 6th step. They didn't have any offensive abilities, and were only experts in physical attacks, but all their physical attacks carried attached boosts of darkness and fire attributes. Extremely tough and persevering, they wouldn't rest until death if someone would happen to annoy them. Looking at this hellhound, Simazyan still walked forward, his bald head glittering intensely under the effects of the bright illumination in the whole stadium. The hellhounds were extremely fast, and the 12 of them arrived in front of Simazyan in just a blink of an eye. These hellhound were not only tyrannical, but looked very well organized. The 3 ahead pounced simultaneously onto Simazyan, while out of the other 9, 3 jumped high, and the other 6 took the 2 sidelines, so to seal every of Simazyan's possible escape routes. Their heads flickered in black and red, taking advantage of their numerical advantage against Simazyan. That dark summoner was seated cross-legged, floating atop the Hell's Gate and incanting without pausing. Fluctuations of spiritual energy of great intensity seemed to come out from the gate. Gloomy, sinister, who knew what kind of creature was about to come out from this gate? He was not thinking of vanquishing Simazyan using the hellhounds, only to stall him for long enough. From his view, as long as his following magic could be completed, his victory would then be settled. Out of all spectators, the most nervous was without doubt Fenglinger. Looking at the unarmed and defenseless Simazyan besieged by 12 hellhounds, she unawarely felt her breath get hasty. She felt like very severely reprimanding Simazyan, "You're just that young, yet are already rushing to participating to the temple's great gathering. Could you just be looking for death?" But the following scene shocked the whole audience. Facing the assaults of the 12 hellhounds, Simazyan's look was still the same, as if he didn't see them at all. Only when these 12 hellhounds seemed close to contact, Simazyan's strides came to a step, as he aimed a right kick heavily onto the ground. With just a bang, a strong golden flame arose from his body, extending over a span of 5 meters with Simazyan at the center, to materialize an immense golden sphere in there. What ability is that? To say nothing about the dumbstruck people from the other temples, even the Knight Temple and Priest Temple expert in abilities of the light attribute looked the same. The next instant, they saw that Baldy keep walking ahead in the same manner in the direction of the Hell's Gate as if nothing happened. The fire behind him vanished, and in their midst the 12 hellhounds had already disappeared, leaving not even a single stain. The referee on the Knight's Lounge couldn't help but reveal a smile upon seeing such a scene. What an intrepid priest. This is no ability, clearly just a release of spiritual energy, simple and direct. The others naturally couldn't hear Chen Zidian's statement, only seeing the intrepid bald priest still advancing toward the Hell's Gate. To instantly dispose of 12 hellhounds expert in their defensive power, was that a feat anyone could manage? The dark summoner felt abruptly nervous, and visibly accelerated his chanting speed. Seeing Sima Xian already at a distance close to 50 meters from him, he couldn't help sweating profusely from the forehead. Although he wanted to give his all to handle Sima Xian, he was still negligent, originally thinking that the hellhounds would at least be able to stall Sima Xian for at least 10 seconds. In reality, Sima Xian only took a second to dispose of them. His incantation was close to completion and couldn't be altered, but at Sima Xian's current speed, he could totally dash in front of him before his incantation would be completed. Being able to instantly extinguish so many hellhounds, could he possibly have no spiritual wings? But to the whole audience's shock, Sima Xian not only didn't release his spiritual wings, but even stopped advancing at 20 meters from the Hell Gate, only peacefully standing there. The great fighting were leaking out from his eyes. What could he be doing? Waiting for the opponent to complete his spell? Isn't that just too arrogant? For a moment, the spectators all got uproarious, as they could tell Sima Xian's goal. Only Sima Xian understood his own feelings. He really needed to vent out. Originally having a wild personality, such a long period of silence now required a great battle for him to liberate his constrained feelings. The dark summoner finally completed his spell. The Hell's Gate dispersed an intense dark purple halation, and immediately, an immense figure drilled out from within. No mistake, it was drilling out. The Hell's Gate was 4 meters long, and 3 meters wide, but this summon could be seen drilling out just by lowering its head. 6 meters tall, human-shaped, robust with a spiral horn. A Hell's Demon King of the 9th step. Right, that was the trump card of this darkness summoner. He was able to summon a powerful Hell's Demon King of the 9th step even though his cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th step. No matter what Sima Xian did, he still finally managed to complete this spell. Rah! An overwhelming roar reverberated, but did not come from the Hell's Demon King, but from Sima Xian 20 meters away. Facing the Hell's Demon King that just came out from Hell Gate, he suddenly spread out his arm and shouted loudly, rushing straight at the Hell's Demon King at great speed. Having just gotten summoned, the Hell's Demon King still didn't understand the situation. A human dispersing an intense bright light from his body was rushing to him, so he unconsciously aimed a punch straight at Sima Xian. An intense dark purple halation came out from the Demon King, the aura of a tyrannical powerhouse of the 9th step with no doubts, But the rushing Sima Xian didn't show any intention of avoiding it, stamping heavily onto the ground to issue a boom sound, soaring high into the sky. The golden light distributed from his body instantly turned incandescent, as from Sima Xian's fist burst out such an incandescent radiance, fiercely clashing against the Hell's Demon King's fist. To clash with the Hell's Demon King in sheer physical power. What a sight! This instant, Fenglinger was already not the only one whose breathing became perturbed, but the same went for an absolute majority of the spectators. Sima Xian's overbearingly rude and unreasonable fighting manner caused their blood to boil. Bang! Light and darkness would always clash violently. The defensive barrier in the stadium shook greatly, and with Sima Xian and the Hell's Demon King as center, powerful fluctuations of spiritual energy was dispersed, causing even the Hell's Gate to be on the verge of collapse just from the repercussions of the clash. To the whole audience's shock, the one to suffer a loss was not Sima Xian, who was not viewed optimistically, but the Hell's Demon King. In a large roar, the Hell's Demon King was unexpectedly pushed away by Sima Xian's fist, and upon this clash, the incandescent sacred fire had ignited and fiercely corroded his body. Sima Xian tumbled back slightly, landing onto the ground, but at the same time his feet touched the ground, he once again rekeyed his power, rushing just like an incandescent artillery shell at the Hell's Demon King. A lot of matches had been undertaken, but this was the first time two powerhouses of the 9th step clashed. When Sima Xian pushed back the Hell's Demon King, everyone understood that this tyrannical and unreasonable priest was actually a powerhouse of the 9th step. A priest of saint level. But how could a priest contend with a Hell's Demon King by his sheer fist? Once again, Sima Xian's fists went up as he jumped high to even cross over the Hell's Demon King. In between his fists condensed a white sphere of a half-meter diameter, brazenly smashing the Hell's Demon King. The Hell's Demon King only recovered his balance right now. Sima Xian's previous light of life was just so domineering, eroding the power of darkness in him with considerable effect. This Hell's Demon had no understanding of the situation right after appearing here. Sima Xian's rude and unreasonable acts caused him to strike out reflexively, his feet bursting with purple light, which was shot at Sima Xian's direction. Sima Xian was just too brutal, not even making use of that purple light shooting out from his own chest. His fists just clashed with the Hell's Demon King's fist. In loud rumbles, the Hell's Demon King let out wretched cries. His 6 meters tall figure forcibly shrank, suddenly getting more than 1 meter shorter, because of the pounding from Sima Xian's fists. An intense holy fire instantly engulfed his whole body, which shivered violently very much. But the demon's horns glinting in purple light were prepared to land on Sima Xian's chest, as Sima Xian's figure stopped in midair, and a purple glint was shot out from his chest. Pam pam. A thunderous sound resounded in the whole stage, as that purple ray violently smashed the chest of the Hell's Demon King, flickering in purple electricity over its whole body, directly pushed back out of the way. Golden dual wings finally appeared on Sima Xian's back, extending over 10 meters. In a flash, he chased after the top of the Hell's Demon King's head, catching one of his horns with his vigorous hands. Get out of my way. Swish. In a grieved sound, the Hell's Demon King's shout finally stopped, as his massive body was split in two right above Sima Xian's head. Bang! Sima Xian's feet landed onto the ground, finally starting to take large breaths of air, but the wild valiance in his eyes didn't weaken in the slightest, ardently watching the Hell's Gate becoming gradually more and more illusory. The whole audience was in deathly stillness. This was the first battle that shook the whole holy city, form the start of the individual competition. The bald priest Sima Xian managed by relying on his physical power to split a Hell's Demon King of the 9th step. This instant, he really had an intrepid look, actually causing the veteran powerhouses from those 6 great temples to shrink in fear. The dark summoner unconsciously drew back, narrowly collapsing. Seeing the wild and burly look in Sima Xian's eyes, his face became pale. Even if a Hell's Demon King was one of the weakest creatures of the 9th step, that was still a powerhouse of this level. And yet that bald priest didn't even use any presentable technique to split it in two. He could not even think of anyone else more powerful. The tall and big figure that lacerated the Hell's Demon King was really exceptionally burly. 9th step, a powerhouse of the 9th step. But was that really a priest? Although Yang Wenjiao achieved victory, that was a victory achieved by tricks, which did not cause a realization of bright glimmer of hope's strength. But at that very moment, Sima Xian's wild rampaging raised the whole audience's attention onto the Demon Hunt Squad bright glimmer of hope. In the contestants' quarters, the team leader Ling Xiao was already standing up, looking full of excitement. Sima Xian was his own disciple. Although this guy was gone for a long time, that was still indeed his disciple. Others may not recognize him as a priest, but Ling Xiao understood very clearly that this bold and intrepid muddled man was part of the priest temple. In all previous sessions of Temple's Great Gathering, the priest temple was almost always participating in the capacity of an observer. Ling Xiao realized for the first time that an unusual priest could still bring honor to the priest temple. He made up his resolve to initiate a new order of disciplined priests, so the priest temple could get a better ability of self-protection. The fierce glint in Sima Xian's eyes vanished gradually, folding his arms and bowing in priest etiquette to the dark summoner, before turning back to leave from the field. There was basically no need for the opponent to concede for everyone to come to the same conclusion. This dark summoner not only lost, but even suffered a terrible blow in his self-confidence. Returning to the Night Temple's entrance, he put back on his large cloak and returned to his team, as if nothing had just happened. When the light of selection landed once again, the spectators only awoke from their sluggish states. The competition resumed, but it was like the stadium caught in a terrible explosion, as comments only kept rising in succession. The name of Bright Glimmer of Hope became the whole holy city's focal point. The two who had successively joined in battles were both in their 30s, but showed tremendous ability, especially the intrepid Sima Xian, who left a very deep impression. In the honored guests' lounge, Fenglinga had her hand on her mouth, with some tears still falling from her face. Even a beauty like Yi Weiyang couldn't help but feel tenderness just by looking at her. So handsome. How perfect. Fenglinga muttered. Yi Weiyang unhappily reacted, I really wonder what you are thinking. How could a quiet little girl such as you be actually inclined toward doughty men? Look at how crude that guy is. Fenglinga shook her head vigorously, he's not crude, look at him, isn't he so manly? I originally found him very valiant, but didn't think that after being gone for so long, he'd actually come back so perfect. No good, I have to go look for him. Saying that, she turned her head and rushed down from the lounge. What a taste in men. Come back right now. Yi Weiyang grabbed her, you're not reserved in the slightest. Weren't you just cursing at that bastard just a bit before? Why are you just so infatuated with such a muscle-headed guy? He's been gone for over 4 years, and did not give out the slightest news. If he doesn't look for you, it will mean that you already don't have any place in his heart. Even if he comes, you need to teach him a good lesson, or won't you just keep being played by him over and over again? So you'd better obediently sit there. You are not allowed to even look at him, understood? Fenglinga sat back to her seat miserably, declaring in a low voice, don't be like that, Sis Weiyang. See how strong he just became. He must have suffered quite a lot in the past years, don't you find him outstanding? Reaching the 9th step at the age of 30, don't you see some potential in him? Don't be so complacent. HMPF, what if he doesn't want you anymore? Fenglinga shook his head, that's impossible. He surely had planned to become an overnight celebrity in this temple's great gathering, which is why he didn't come to see me, to avoid leaking their team's strength. Seeing her confident look, Yi Weiyang couldn't help but laugh to her, what a girl you are. What a little white flower, you're simply a little infatuated flower. I'm not regarding you anymore. Sima Xian's victory gained the attention of all 6 great temples, but the competition still had to go on. Very quickly, the spectators' lines of sight were attracted back to the stage. A short time after Sima Xian set out to fight, the head of the mage temple Li Jingji was picked to join the battle against a warrior. He only needed to launch one spell to achieve complete victory. His performance was very low-key, but clearly his opponent was not strong enough and was unable to force out any of his other abilities. Almost a half of the contestants from the 6 great temple were powerhouses of the 9th step. After battles between powerhouses of the 9th step started to take place, the competition became more and more intense, and a domain wielder even appeared in one battle. On the 35th battle, the light of selection landed for the 3rd time onto someone from Bright Glimmer of Hope, this time landing on the 5th man of the group. That was a tall-built man, looking even younger than the previous 2, and wore his deep green hair long. His appearance instantly rose comments on the side of the mage temple, because many mags had recognized him. And on the side of the knight temple, a pink-haired girl almost instantly clenched her fist, looking extremely sluggish, just like the previous Fenglinga. Biting her teeth, with great difficulty, she resisted the urge to cry out loudly. Li Jingji looked at Lin Chen on his side, an inquiring look on his face. Lin Chen had a lifeless look right now, trembling intensely out of excitement. Li Jingji shifted back his gaze, able to see from Lin Chen's expression that he didn't know at all about his grandson coming to Holy City. That great excitement couldn't possibly be faked. No mistake, this dark green-haired and slender-built man, looking handsome to the extent of being characterizable as a bit girly, was the only mage of Bright Glimmer of Hope, Lin Xin, nicknamed Hasdrugsbro by everyone else. Lin Xin's opponent was a knight, so he walked into the stadium alongside this knight. Without leaving the knight the time to open her mouth, Lin Xin's figure flashed and shifted 100 meters away, as if teleporting, before closing the distance to this knight. The powerhouses from all 6 great temples only saw Lin Xin's back flash in blue light, before he accelerated to appear 100 meters away. When could a mage attain such speed? That knight had shivers as well, but as he came to take part in the competition, he naturally wouldn't be frightened so easily. In a golden flash of light, a huge snow-white eagle with a golden horn appeared above him. This gigantic eagle rose over 10 meters, and right as it appeared, light essence kept surging in waves, pouring all the way inside the knight. This knight was originally at the peak of the 8th step of cultivation, but the assistance of the gigantic eagle in the sky caused his imposing mana to rise sharply, rising to the realm of the 9th step in the blink of an eye. Highest opponent Lin Xin did not chant, but scratched the empty air in front of him with his right fist, immediately causing a 1-meter-long thumb-shaped blue light ray to come out and be shot at that knight. The blue ray did not emit the slightest sound, only advancing and tracing an arc. What's that? That knight who just got boosted by his holy golden eagle dashed at Lin Xin with a greatly increased cultivation. Seeing that inconspicuous blue ray shoot out, as he raised his left hand, a deep golden color condensed instantly, turning into a golden shield in front of him, and he launched divine obstruction while coming to a stop in his dash. A blue ray. Could his opponent be a water element mage? This being the temple's great gathering, even through the opponent's attack looked inconspicuous, he couldn't afford to be careless. As a guardian knight, he had to attach the most importance to safety and put emphasis on consolidation. In a battle between a guardian knight and a mage, the guardian knight would frequently need the mage to exhaust his magic power to achieve victory. After all, guardian knights were not expert in speed and had rather weaker attack power, putting them in no good position against mags using their spiritual wings to achieve flight. Bang! When the blue ray accurately landed onto the guardian knight's shield, against all expectations, that soft-looking blue ray with a presence far from comparable to the awe of a fireball suddenly exploded upon contact with the guardian knight's shield. The guardian knight was suddenly pushed close to 10 meters away, and blue ashes were created on the shield. Immediately, his spiritual highlandized holy shield disappeared in the midst of the blue ray, as the air surrounding him became clearly distorted. That was not water, but fire. But what kind of magic was that? The guardian knight lost his shield under the state of divine obstruction, and that burning hot stream of air caused his spiritual energy to deplete at a massive speed. With great difficulty, he finally managed to counteract the massive remainder produced by the blue ray. Although his cultivation was raised to the 9th step thanks to his mount, in the end he hadn't reached the 9th step for real. Facing the instant blast of the opponent's fire spell of the 9th step, he knew that his chances were pretty scarce. This time, Lin Xin launched yet another attack. Behind his back, his dark hair fluttered slowly on the side of his left arm as his right hand was raised once again, and this time, 2 such blue rays were shot again. The guardian knight's complexion had become very unsightly. In a situation with no usable equipment, his shield could only be materialized by relying on his own spiritual energy, and adding that to divine obstruction made up his greatest defensive state. But the previous blue ray just pierced through his defense, and this time, 2 of them would certainly be even harder to defend against. In a large shout, the guardian knight strode forward and traced an arc in a movement. In the meantime, a holy light rose from his whole body, sending him into a sanctified mode. His hands crossed each other in mid-air, and a shield even thicker than the previous one appeared. Incandescent flames formed this heavy shield used to block the incoming attack. That was still divine obstruction, and his only current hope was that this instant spell Lin Xin unleashed actually expended a great amount of magical power, so that the mage opposing him would have a greater depletion of resources than he did. When the blue rays exploded in succession, the guardian knight realized once again his mistake. These 2 blue entities had blasted in succession, causing this shield using holification and spiritual highland as basis to actually get split once again, a scorching blue fire rising around the knight's body. Some of it was already on him, and caused vast expenditures of spiritual energy to keep gushing out, all of which was just caused by these terrifyingly scorching blue rays of light. So a real powerhouse of the 9th step was actually such a terrifying thing. This match looked far more relaxed than before, no flashy magic, no powerful ability, and none of the disdain and coarse wildness showed by Sima Xian. But true powerhouses were able to discern a lot from this. That simple-looking blue ray of light was not simple at all. Li Jingji looked at Lin Xin with a look full of shock, murmuring, "Such condensed spiritual highland already goes beyond the scale of magic." An easy-looking yet extremely complicated control over spiritual energy. Just what terrifyingly deep level does this child Lin Shen's understanding of fire already reach? Lin Chen's shock went even beyond Li Jingji's. Was that still that same grandson of his? The previous attack was something he had no way at all to reproduce. Even though Lin Chen's cultivation made a final breakthrough, after so many years of bottleneck to finally reach the 9th step, after the end of the Holy War, he still felt totally unable to reproduce that control over fire. Moreover, Lin Shen's heart of fire gave him a control over fire far beyond any ordinary mage. After his grandson went missing for over 4 years only to return so powerful, how could he not get excited? Right at this time, Lin Shen's next display of skills shook the whole audience. His left foot stepped forward a bit, as he wore an extremely focused look on his face, his eyes flickering in sincerity. Raising his left hand, this time he exerted control using only his forefinger. Blue rays appeared brazenly in the air, looking even shorter than the previous two, but did not immediately go for the Guardian Knight, only staying condensed at Lin Shen's side. In a blink of an eye, Lin Shen flamboyantly gave rise to 12 of these blue rays of light, causing the opposite Guardian Knight to look totally blank. Since 2 blue rays already exhausted him to such extent, how could so many of them even spare his life? By chance the temple's great gathering had set rules, that killing the opponent is in no way allowed, or else he was afraid he would already be fleeing in great panic. This video will end here.